Yo, what's going on, everybody? It is your boy Fitzmonk TV here, aka G-Lauren33. I am back here today with another episode of the Legit Shoot podcast. And on tonight's podcast, we are going to be going over WWE Survivor Series 2022. It is taking place from Boston, Massachusetts, the TD Garden this Saturday. Today's Tuesday, so November 26th, I will be there. I'm pretty excited for the show, and we're going to be talking about it on tonight's podcast. I will be previewing and predicting all of the major matches on the show, and yeah, it's going to be pretty simple. I'm also going to talk about a couple other things on the pod. We're going to talk about Sasha Banks. Will she be returning on the show? And we're going to be talking about Roman Reigns, all right? I know, people have been wondering where you've been, Fitz. I know people want the wrestling podcast. I'm going to keep it nice, quick, and simple. I just haven't been making podcasts. It's really just been that, I just haven't been making podcasts. I do want to get back in the swing of things, though. I'm not going to make any promises that, I'm going to be back to what my normal schedule was, but I will, try to, come back. I miss doing the podcast, even though I haven't been doing them. I do miss interacting and engaging with you guys, but you guys are getting a podcast episode today, and you guys will be getting a Survivor Series review. Most likely that will be on Sunday, since I will be at the show Saturday night, and, unless something crazy happens, it'll most likely be Sunday afternoon, probably, or after the Bucks game. But anyway, yeah. But follow me on Twitter. I will be probably live tweeting during the show, as long as, cell reception is good. You guys don't know, going to arena shows when you're with, thousands of people, cell reception may not be the best, but I will try to live tweet a little bit during the show. But, yeah, Survivor Series, War Games. This is the first year that Survivor Series will be under this new format, under this War Games, right? It's the first time we're having War Game matches on the main roster, and this will most likely be the format going forward for Survivor Series, all right? I know, a lot of you guys probably have a lot of thoughts, right? You guys want to know my thoughts on a lot of things. First things first, I will say that I do love the new War Game setup for Survivor Series. One of the things I've complained about, a lot on this podcast throughout the years, is that Survivor Series has not felt special. Last time that Survivor Series felt important was, I believe, back in 2019. That was the year where they did NXT versus the main roster, right? It was NXT versus Raw versus SmackDown, where they were really trying to establish, NXT as that third brand, not the rookie brand, not the developmental brand, but as that third, brand, right? That was just as important as Raw and SmackDown, right? And of course, this was when, AEW was just getting started. So they really wanted to push, NXT hard to hopefully get ratings boosts on, NXT and all that good stuff. That was back when NXT was, still at Full Sail University, going up against AEW on Wednesday nights. But the last couple of years, if you've been listening to this podcast, you've heard me bitch and moan about this, is that NXT has not, or not NXT, is that Survivor Series has not had that same feeling in a very, very long time. The main reason for this is because, of course, yes, COVID had a little bit of role of that, but, the Vince McMahon era, they were just doing Raw versus SmackDown with absolutely zero stakes. Absolutely zero stakes. There was nothing special about it, nothing important, nothing that was going to lead into, future weeks of WWE programming, going to the Royal Rumble, going to WrestleMania season, because Survivor Series is the last major pay-per-view of this year. And, the next big pay-per-view is not until January with the Royal Rumble. I believe this year, for 2022 specifically, We're still, I think they're still planning on having a day one pay per view on January 1st, on the first weekend of the new year. But I could be wrong on that. If I am wrong, just let me know in the comment section. But we all know the first major pay per view after Survivor Series is not until the end of January with the Rumble, right? And I feel like this year's Rumble coming up in a couple months might be one of the most important Rumbles in recent memory. You know, it's going to be the first Rumble under the Triple H administration, and there's so many, potential big returns, which we'll talk about actually in a little bit. But yeah, the last, couple years with Survivor Series, they're, when they're in the Thunderdome, right? And last year it didn't have any stakes. It was just really I forgot the way they marketed it, but I believe it was like the best of the best. I feel like I remember that was the tagline. And we did get some good matches. I'm not sitting here denying that. We got Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre in the Thunderdome. We also had Roman Reigns versus Big E last year, which was great. We've had, Sasha Banks and Asuka, one of the most underrated women's matches because, of course, that took place during the Thunderdome era. So we've had some really good Survivor Series matches the last couple of years, but it's just that the, marketing and the hype around the show has not been that important because these matches had no stakes. They were mainly just champion versus champion, bragging rights, and that's not what Survivor Series was back in the day. Survivor Series usually always had crazy stakes that would lead into future weeks of programming on WWE TV. And they've gotten away from that, the last couple of years of the Vince McMahon administration. But now with Triple H in charge, they're trying to attempt to make Survivor Series important yet again. And I'm all here for it. We all remember the 5-on-5 elimination matches back in the day. Some of the best matches in WWE history, some of the best moments of all time come from, those Survivor Series matches and the stakes that were involved. Also, last year, or not last year, back when they first did the brand split, right, 2016, some of those Survivor Series were really built strongly. You had Shane McMahon and Daniel Bryan from SmackDown, Stephanie McMahon from Raw. Then you had, Kurt Angle, come in. And, those were some really good times. But they've gotten away from that. And I feel like, this year will be the start of a new era and a new legacy for Survivor Series. But I feel like next year they're really, really going to go, really go to town with Survivor Series and the booking. I will say, if I'm being honest, yes, the Survivor Series card does look pretty good. There's only 5 matches on it, and we will go in into those matches in a little bit. But one thing that I do think that they haven't done well with, as great as Triple H has been in charge these last couple months, and it's a breath of fresh air, right? One problem I will say that I have noticed with Survivor Series is, the build started a little bit late. We've only gotten 2 to 3 weeks of build for Survivor Series, and a lot of that goes to Crown Jewel, right? We know they do 2 Saudi Arabia shows a year, and both of the Saudi shows were really good this year. Crown Jewel was one of the best pay-per-views of the year, if we're being honest. And we know a large part to that is because the WWE gets paid a lot of money by those people in Saudi Arabia. They get paid a boatload of money, right? But the problem is, Crown Jewel this year took place at the beginning of November. I think it was the first week, the first Saturday of the month, right? If not, it was the last Saturday of October. But I think it was the first Saturday of this month that we had Crown Jewel. And the problem is, they spent so much time building up the Crown Jewel and making it into a great show. They didn't start the build to Survivor Series till a couple days after. And I do think that has hurt the show a little bit. Some of these matches have been put together in just, the last week or two of WWE TV. I feel like they could have put a lot more spotlight on the show. Yes, of course, the card looks really good. And I have no doubts that it's not going to be a great show, but I do think the build was hurt a little bit by the fact that Crowd Jewel took place at the beginning of the month, and they didn't start really building towards Survivor Series until right after Crowd Jewel. I believe we got the poster to Survivor Series, that epic poster. This year's poster is a banger. You have that poster of Roman Reigns and the Bloodline. I think they released that poster the day after Crowd Jewel, that Sunday, and then they started building towards the show the last 2-3 weeks. I feel like for next year, I would do Crowd Jewel on a month where you don't already have a pay-per-view scheduled, and then just, give Survivor Series a full 4 or 5 week build. Make it really special, right? When Triple H originally took over for Vince McMahon, I hope I said this. I don't know. I can't remember if I did a podcast, but I said that it would take time for Triple H to rebuild what Vince McMahon broke. Vince McMahon, I don't have to go into the past, but Vince McMahon spent a long time, the last, what's close to a decade, really, with poor creative decisions, really hurting to, the main roster and what, made WWE great, right? And I said right away, it was going to take time for Triple H to really right the wrongs that Vince McMahon did. And that's not to say that Triple H, has been perfect, because if I'm being honest, there's been some weak Raws and SmackDowns the last couple months. Not every show has been a banger. For the most part, things have been great, but there has been weak shows here and there. And not every single week is going to be amazing television. Well, we got to be honest with ourselves here. As great as Triple H is, right, not every single week is going to be, this is the best Raw or SmackDown ever, right? But I said, it was going to take time for Triple H and his team to come in and really fix the characters, fix the show, make WWE a watchable product again, right? And yes, he's done a good job so far of, taking over the main roster and the creative direction. But I feel like it's going to take at least 1 full year for really Triple H to really have a strong grip on Raw and SmackDown and the main roster, and really make it into his vision and what he wants, for the direction of WWE creative going forward, right? I feel like this is the start of that. Survivor Series, then go into Royal Rumble, going into WrestleMania, right? Because this year's WrestleMania will be the first WrestleMania without Vince. And like Vince or hate him, he was always great at making WrestleMania a big deal from a marketing standpoint, making it stand out. Was every WrestleMania perfect? No. But for the most part, he was great at making WrestleMania at least feel like a big deal. And then going into the months past that, going to SummerSlam, and then, getting back to Survivor Series next year, God willing, that's when I really do think Triple H will be able to, really make his vision of what he wants, WWE to be going forward. I'm getting some weird ass text right now. But like I was saying, I do think it is going to take time for Triple H to really mold this into his vision of what he wants, for WWE. And like I said, look at this. Look at the Survivor Series card. Really, there's 5 matches. I don't know if there's any pre-show matches. I don't even know if they do pre-show matches anymore. But there's only 5 matches, which is, does give you those NXT Takeover vibes, right? Because NXT Takeover cards were never that massive. There were always 5, 6, 7 matches at best, right? But the show would be about 3 hours. It would give time for each match to tell a story. And, of course, the show is headlined by the 2 War Games matches, the women's one and the men's one. I expect both of those matches to go pretty long. War Games matches are usually, you can go anywhere from 30 minutes to close to an hour. And then you have 3 other matches. And like I said, it's a pretty good card. I think we are in for a good night of a good show. And I do think we might get some big surprises on the show. I also think we will get, probably one promo in between. Maybe something with Bray Wyatt, right? But I do think there will be at least probably one promo in between matches. Something like that. I also would not be surprised if they decide to do 2 War Game matches, one at the beginning, one at the end. I could definitely, it's most likely that Roman Reigns and the Bloodline, of course, will probably close the show, right? But you never know. You never know. If a potential superstar returns, I could see that closing the show as well, right? And we'll get into that in just a little bit. But before we talk about predictions, one of the 2 things I want to talk about is I want to talk about Roman Reigns. Like I said, I know it's been a while since I've done a podcast, so I know a lot of you guys probably have lots of questions for me about, my thoughts on certain things going on in WWE. I didn't want to, the reason why I'm not streaming right now, I usually stream these big predictions shows. The reason why I'm not streaming is I know you guys would have so many questions that it would probably end up being a 3-hour pod. And like I said, we will do a stream eventually where we just talk wrestling for a while. But mainly, I just want to talk about focus on Survivor Series and talk about a couple other things, and then that be that. But I promise we will do a pod coming up soon where we just talk wrestling, and you guys can ask me whatever on whatever's topic. Probably in December, probably sometime in December. As we get close to the end of the year, we'll do like an end of the year mega review stream. But getting into things, in terms of Roman Reigns. What I mainly want to talk about is who's going to be the one to take that title off of Roman Reigns. A lot of you guys, ask me that on Twitter. And if I'm being honest, there's different directions that they're going to go with this. We all know WrestleMania is in Hollywood this year, right? And WrestleMania is going to be 2 nights, which it should be every year going forward. I know there's some people that are against that. But in my opinion, with the amount of talent that WWE has, there's no reason why it shouldn't be 2 nights. You shouldn't be doing a 8-hour show. I don't care if it's WrestleMania. 7-8 hours is just way too long. You should not be having people sitting there for 7-8 hours. Because yes, the WrestleMania show is 5 hours, right? But you gotta also include the 2-hour pre-shows, which usually have 3 or 4 matches on them. And you also gotta include, right, when doors open for Mania, usually like 3 hours beforehand. So you have some people sitting there from 4 a.m. all the way till close to midnight. There's no need to do that. Do it over 2 nights, right? It helps the viewers. It helps the people sitting there in attendance. It's better for everybody. Plus, you can give people more time. You shouldn't be doing an 8-hour show where you have to rush through matches just because you decide to book 16 matches on the card, for an 8-hour show. Anyway, but back to what I was saying. Who's going to take that title off of Roman Reigns? WrestleMania is going to be in Hollywood this year, and you look at it, they're hoping to get The Rock. We've known this, for years, not months, but years. That this is the match that they've wanted to do. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. As dominant as Roman has been, Rock versus Roman should be non-title, in my opinion. You don't need a championship to do that match. That's a legitimate dream match for many. You don't need a title for that match. Plus, of course, if you do that match, it's obvious that Roman would not lose the title, right? And I think many of you will agree with me that Roman needs to lose that title at WrestleMania. As dominant as this run has been, and it will go down as one of the greatest title runs probably in WWE history. Love Roman or hate Roman, you can't deny how great his title run has been, right? It's had its ups, it's had some downs, but it's one of the greatest title runs in WWE history. I think we will all agree that he does need to lose that title at WrestleMania. It's time for them to start letting other people run at the top. One of the negatives of Roman's title run has been that other people that deserve world title runs have not been given that and have been, kind of hurt, in their own star development because, of how long they've decided to keep that title off Roman. And that's something that was from Vince. We all know Vince, viewed Roman as the guy. Vince had some love affair with Roman. And then, it's been that way for a decade, right? Vince had this love affair with Roman, and then when Triple H took over, in July, right? Not July, but earlier this summer, there was no way Triple H was going to end Roman's run at 2 years. Even though it was Vince's vision, right? It just made sense from a story perspective to keep the title on Roman, and it makes the most sense to keep this run going through WrestleMania. That's when this title run should end. I don't want to hear people saying SummerSlam or sometime next year, or even some people have said, WrestleMania 40 in Philly. No, it has to end this year at WrestleMania. You're actually hurting the development of some other future stars because you kept that title on Roman. You've already made Roman, this run has already put Roman in the conversation of the greats, right? Me personally, I don't think Roman's on the level of, the Cenas, the Austins, the HBKs, the Takers, right? I do think he's up there. I do think when you talk about, greatest of all time, like the top 10s, yes, Roman, this run, does put Roman up there. I don't think he's in the top 5, the top 3 or anything like that. But, he's definitely earned my respect, and he deserves to be in that top 10. He definitely does. But, we don't need Roman carrying that title for another year and a half. Right? This run needs to end at WrestleMania. Roman doesn't need the title. He really doesn't. He's almost grown above the title at this point. When he loses that title, whenever it is, which should be WrestleMania, right? Roman will be just fine. He'll be able to tell a bunch of stories, with Roman without the titles, right? Cena was always fine when he did have the title. Austin was always fine when he did have the title. Undertaker only had 7 world title runs, during his 25-year career, and he's still one of the greatest of all times. HBK didn't have that many world title runs, so Roman will be fine. He had a 2.5-year title reign if it ends at WrestleMania. He doesn't need any more world titles in his career. All right. At that point, Roman needs to start doing other stuff, and then you need to have Roman start building up and start putting over some other people. Because Roman has, so many other people have put Roman over during this run. It's time for Roman to give back and put some other people over. But like I said, the plan, if you do Roman and Rock at WrestleMania, I would do a non-title. But we don't know. WWE wants The Rock versus Roman. This year's WrestleMania would be the perfect time to do it. It's in Hollywood. Rock's arguably the number 1 Hollywood star these days, right? It's the perfect, venue to do it. There's really no reason why they shouldn't. But reports are that The Rock has not yet signed on for WrestleMania this coming year, Even though that's still the plan, right? It's not official. And until we get official confirmation that it is going to be The Rock versus Roman and The Rock has signed on, then, it's only speculation, right? But here's the thing. Like I said before, The Rock's not going to take that title off of Roman. We all know that, right? And Roman should not hold that title past WrestleMania. He shouldn't, I would, I would say that maybe you do 2 Roman matches at Mania. You have Roman face something on night 1, and then you have Roman face The Rock on night 2. Because let's be serious here. Regardless of what happens, if The Rock versus Roman is booked for WrestleMania and everything works out, that's going to be the main event of night 2. There's almost no bigger match in the company that you can do that would overshadow that. The only thing I could think that could possibly be greater than that is Cena versus Steve Austin, right? The biggest star, arguably the 2 biggest stars in WWE history. The dream match that we never got, right? That could be the only other match I could think of that, could overshadow Rock and Roman. But then, of course, 2 part-timers, 2 people that are not even, members of the active roster, right, taking over night 2, the prime WrestleMania main event. So, you get into those logistics, and then you're like, does that make sense? But that, like I said, that's the only other match that I could see that would be on the level or even greater than Roman and The Rock, right? And we've heard the rumors, Stone Cold Steve Austin, he is open to having another WrestleMania match because what him and KO did this past year was fantastic, right? I mean, and right now, for Cena, we know that Cena, right now, he is planning to compete at next year's WrestleMania. So if you have Austin, if you have Cena, I would do that match, right? I know that Logan Paul wants to face Cena. I really don't have a desire to see it, even though it probably would be a good match. If you have Austin and Cena there, you do the match. It's really that simple. There's no reason why you don't do the match. All right, but in terms of Roman and The Rock, right? What I would do personally is, like I said, you need to have Roman drop that title to Mania. It's time. If he goes past WrestleMania again holding those titles, I'm gonna honestly be pissed. Not because I don't like Roman, but it's really not fair to other people on that on that main roster that deserve to become top guys that they don't get their moments because they just continue this Roman title run. Roman's had his moments. He's had more WrestleMania moments than people on the main roster combined. All right, so I don't think you need to give Roman another WrestleMania moment with him, leaving Mania with those titles. What I would do personally is, best case scenario, I would have Roman defend that title on night one against, of course, Cody Rhodes. That is the favorite right now to win the Royal Rumble. He should be back by then, hopefully, from his torn pec injury, and then you can do Roman versus Rock night 2, right? If you really want to end this historic Roman run and just make it a huge deal, right? I would have Roman defend on night 1 and then face The Rock on night 2. WWE's biggest star, right? Highlighting both nights of Mania. I feel like that would be a big deal, and you tell an amazing story with it. You have Cody come back at the Rumble, right? He wins the Rumble, then he goes on and he beats Roman at WrestleMania, probably on night 1, and then you can have Roman get his win back, beating The Rock on night 2, because there's no reason why The Rock shouldn't lose at WrestleMania. He's not a full-time guy. It's not gonna hurt him at all. The Rock should be putting over Roman at WrestleMania this year, if he is going to be in fact there. But there's also the thing is, do you split the titles, right? We know we have one unified belt, but Roman doesn't appear on Raw that often. It's you're lucky if you get Roman on Raw once every 2-3 months, If you're going to keep the belts unified, when Cody or whoever takes those titles off Roman, you would need them to appear on both shows, right? Because right now Roman's on SmackDown, let's say every other week, right? Right now Roman's on SmackDown every 2-3 weeks, because he has that reduced schedule. But there's no world champion on Raw. Roman doesn't appear enough on Raw to be called the world champion of that show. I know they've tried to make the U.S. title be spotlighted as the main title, but it really hasn't. And that's not, any knock on Seth Rollins or Bobby Lashley or anything, but it's just they haven't been able to make the U.S. Championship the main title. It's been the U.S. Championship, the way it's been presented better than it's been in years under Vince, but I feel like there's almost nothing you can do really right now to make that title appear as the main title on Monday Night Raw. All right. So whoever does take those titles off Roman, if they decide to keep the belts unified, you're gonna have that person appear on both shows, right? On a somewhat even basis. In a perfect world, what I would do, I would separate the WWE and the Universal titles. That's what I would do. I was never, if you guys remember, I was never a big fan of having Brock and Roman merge those titles to begin with. Because I said this. Go check the tape. Unless you're gonna have Roman or Brock appear on both shows, it doesn't make sense. one show's gonna get screwed by not having a world champion, and the other is gonna, be amplified, right? And that's exactly been the case. How many times has Roman been on Raw this year since he's won the WWE Championship, right? Since they unified the belt. I want to say probably 5 times or less, and here we are in 7 months since he's won that belt. That's not fair. Like I said, it's not fair. So honestly, I would, split up the belts in a perfect world. I say you consider doing this if you don't have The Rock, because let's be honest, there's a chance it might not happen. It could be Rock has Hollywood commitments, and of course, the insurance if he gets injured and all that. If somehow you can't get The Rock for WrestleMania, this is what I would do. This is what I personally would do. I would split up both belts. I would have Roman defend one of those belts on night 1, and then I would have Roman defend the other belt on night 2, and I would have him lose both belts on both nights, right? Presumably, I would have him lose the WWE Championship on night 1, and then have him lose the Universal Championship on night 2, because of course he's held the Universal Championship, a year and a half longer than he held the WWE Championship, but. That was the title he started this amazing run on, so it makes sense for it he ends this run by losing that title, right? And what I would do personally is I would have Cody from Raw win the WWE Championship, and then I would build up Bray Wyatt to be the one to take the Universal Championship from Roman on night 2. Cody, of course. Cody said it when he first came back. Cody said that becoming WWE champion, doing the thing that his father couldn't, that would be the legacy, right? Winning that belt would be the biggest thing in his family's history, right? And the emotional story that you could tell with Cody and the promos and everything, that would be stuff to absolutely die for, right? I'm over-exaggerating a little bit, but you guys get what I'm saying. Have Cody win the WWE Championship from Roman on night 1. And then on night 2, right, Bray Wyatt, he's been amazing since he's come back. The emotional story you could tell there, right? Bray Wyatt, he is currently a babyface. Remember, Roman beat Bray Wyatt and Braun Strowman in that triple threat match after SummerSlam to win the Universal Championship, right? That was back when Bray was the Fiend. It would be the perfect cycle, the perfect way to end, Roman's title run by finally giving Bray the championship run he deserves and having him beat Roman on night 2, right? Roman's run started by beating Bray Wyatt for the Universal Championship, right? Beating the Fiend, and then Roman's journey ends with him losing that title to the guy he originally took the title off in Bray Wyatt. So personally, that's what I would do. Of course, there's other contenders. You could have Sami Zayn, right? But I feel like it's more likely that when Sami Zayn eventually turns babyface and eventually, turns against the bloodline, however they do it, I feel like we could get Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn versus the Usos. We can't forget the Paul brothers, right? Logan and Jake, that people have been talking about that potentially. Maybe you do like a triple threat at Mania, the Paul brothers versus the Usos versus KO and Sammy. I feel like that's a match you could do, right? But we also should we shouldn't forget Sami Zayn. And of course you can bring up other names like Seth Rollins. Seth and Roman have unfinished business from the Royal Rumble this past year. And of course there's a couple other names, but the names that make the most sense to take that title from Roman are Bray and Cody. So that's what I would do. Of course, if you do Roman and The Rock, right, at Mania, personally, what I would do, I would have Cody face Roman night 1, and then do The Rock and Roman on night 2. If you don't get The Rock, personally, I would do then I would do Cody versus Roman night 1, and then Bray versus Roman night 2. But if they don't get The Rock at all and they keep the belts unified, then I would just do, of course, Cody versus Roman, and that would be that. But that's the way I would book the end of Roman's championship run. But of course, we'll just have to see how things slowly develop in the coming months. We still have, a little over 4 months till Mania. And then we'll just have to see where things fall. But of course, that's what I would do if anybody from WWE is listening to this. All right, but that's my thoughts on that. Next thing I want to talk about is, of course, Sasha Banks. All right, and I know my diehard fans, my diehard listeners, the people who've been rocking with me for years, you guys know. I know you guys want my in-depth thoughts on the Sasha Banks situation since, I haven't been really covering it. So it's crazy to think that it's already been half a year since Sasha and Naomi walked out of WWE. But yeah, time flies. It's been half a year, and so much has happened with that situation. Sasha and Naomi being kind of, this is still when Vince was in charge, being absolutely disgraced and having their names ran through the mud from WWE's PR team, right? Them being deleted from WWE history, all these things, right? Because Vince and his team were so petty and such idiotic clowns, right? And I could spend 3 hours. I could really just do a 3-hour podcast just talking about this Sasha Banks situation, but I'm not going to. There's no need to do that. What happened, right? But of course, the talk of the town has been when or if Sasha and Naomi will come back. And there's been talks, when Triple H first took over, we heard reports from Sean Rossap and, Dave Meltzer and all the Ringside News and Brian Alvarez, all the big names in the business. They said that Sasha and Naomi did talk with Triple H, right? And that they did agree on returns. That was, what we heard. Sasha and Naomi, their names were put back on the internal roster. They were put back on the WWE website and all that. And we thought Sasha and Naomi were actually going to appear, multiple times, right? Maybe at Crown Jewel, maybe at Extreme Rules, etc., etc. I never made videos on it because I just more wanted it to happen. I didn't want to make predictions, But now, here we are 6 months later, and Sasha and Naomi are still not back, and of course, there's been so much, especially more on Sasha's end, right? She's filed trademarks for these different names, right? There's rumors of her wanting to compete in other companies in Japan. And really, Sasha has not said anything about the situation, right? She has been a little more active on social media, but she has given absolutely zero insights. No interviews, no nothing. She has not said anything about, when she will return and what her wrestling future is, And like I said, it's like, that's why for me personally, even though I am a huge Sasha Banks fan, always have been, always will be, it's just, I find it a waste of time. For someone, I've been making videos talking about Sasha for 7-8 years now, since she first came to the main roster in 2015. It's just not worth wasting time on. Yes, I can make 3-hour videos, make long podcasts, make tons of videos, get views and money and all this good stuff, right? And you guys would love that content. But for me, I just don't really see, I just don't want to put that effort in. Because at the end of the day, I would just be speculating because we really don't know much. Yes, these insiders can report, that Sasha had talks and things like that, but the only real people that know what Sasha's plans are Sasha and maybe Triple H. All right. We know that Sasha and Naomi had spoken to Triple H. We know that for a fact. They are listed on the internal roster, right? Yes, you can't buy Sasha and Naomi merch or anything, but they are on WWE's internal roster, right? And we know also the big thing the last couple weeks is Sasha's been in Mexico training. She's posted numerous videos on her social media of her training. So she is getting back into ring shape, right? We also know Sasha has a lot going on in Hollywood. You know, she is the next big crossover star. I know Bianca Belair is slowly getting into that as well, but I think we all agree that Sasha is the next big crossover star, like The Rock, like John Cena, like Batista, etc., etc. I do think Roman will probably transition into that world as well once his world title run is over. But of course, you know, Roman's still on TV here. You know, Sasha has been gone for 6 months. We know Sasha's been doing a lot of modeling, a lot of, you know, filming stuff, a lot of TV commercials, right? Um, she's done a couple signings where she'll probably be in The Mandalorian season 3, right? But we don't have any concrete answer about what her WWE/wrestling future is going to look like. But we always did look at the two most likely spots for Sasha to return would be Survivor Series and the Royal Rumble. There was a report that came out earlier today. I think it was Sean Ross that put it out. Right now, the most likely name to return and be the fifth woman for Bianca's Survivor Series team is Becky Lynch. Right. And of course, that makes sense from a storyline perspective. I don't think anybody would complain about that because it's Becky Lynch and she is a babyface again and all that good stuff. But I feel like the more emotional return and the return that we all want would be Sasha Banks, especially because it's her hometown. It's Boston, Massachusetts. It's where she grew up, right? And it would be the perfect spot for her to return. And there's so much you could do with Sasha. You know, of course, you can have her face Ronda Rousey for the SmackDown Women's Championship. You could have her face Bayley and Damage Control, right? You could have her and Naomi come back, you know, for the tag titles. Or you could also run it back with Sasha and Bianca. There's so many different avenues and different routes that you can go with Sasha when she comes back. But, of course, I will keep saying it. It would make the most sense for her to return at Survivor Series. And, of course, selfishly, of course, that's where I want since I'm going to be at the show. I'm a huge Sasha Banks fan. All right. And I would go absolutely nuts for her to return this Sunday. Or this Saturday at Survivor Series. In the hometown pop she would get would be probably absolutely out of this world. But we don't know. Right now, based on what the reports I heard, WWE's not heard anything about Sasha returning. Same thing with Naomi, right? Same thing with Charlotte. Yeah, but it would be a shame not to have Sasha come back. Of course, if Sasha doesn't come back at Survivor Series, the next more likely return would be the Royal Rumble in a couple months. And of course, that would be a big deal as well, right? Sasha comes back at number 30 or number 29, and then you can have her either win it or whatever you want to do. But personally, I feel like, you know, and of course, only Sasha knows what she wants to do, and, you know, whatever happens, happen. It would be a shame. It would be a shame not to have Sasha return at Survivor Series. Like I said, I hope she does return, and I hope WWE's just keeping it secretive, right? If we get Becky, I'm not going to complain, you know, about having Becky come back, but me personally, I'm hoping, I am really hoping it is Sasha, because, you know, it would be such a missed opportunity, especially since Boston is her hometown, and you guys know Sasha's ring IQ is second to none. I feel like she knows, you know, that it would be a missed opportunity for her not to return at Survivor Series, unless, you know, something else. She's filming something secretly, or she's not, you know, she doesn't feel 100% ready. I don't know, but knowing the kind of person and the love that Sasha has for this business, I feel like she knows deep down that, of course, you know, envisioning her return at Survivor Series would be something else. You know, especially it being her hometown. If Survivor Series was somewhere else, then fine. You know, I would say, all right, yeah, you know, it's going to be hit or miss if Sasha returns at Survivor Series, you know, or you could just save for the Rumble. But it's the fact that it's her hometown, Boss Town. You know, that's what we call it, Boss Town, you know. It would be a special moment. You know, it would be a special moment for me as a Sasha Banks fan. It would be a special moment for her, you know, not only finally coming back to the sport she loves, but coming back in front of friends and family and the hometown crowd, you know. it would be a missed opportunity. And I would also say to that regards, if Sasha is coming back in Survivor Series, right? I would make that the main event. I know, of course, yes, Roman Reigns, the Bloodline, he's WWE's biggest star right now. You know, the Bloodlines are all the promotional material. I don't think it would hurt to have the Bloodline open the show if you know for a fact you're gonna have Sasha Banks open or close the show, you know, in the Women's War Games match. I don't think anybody would really complain about that. Plus, Roman, you know, would it be the first time Roman hasn't closed the show during his run? And I don't think it would hurt. You know, I feel like it would actually make Survivor Series a better show if you have the Bloodline open, and if Sasha returns, you have her close the show in the Women's War Games match, right? You know, but we'll just have to wait and see, you know, what happens in that regard. Naomi, I think it's more likely that Naomi returns in the Royal Rumble regardless of what happens, right? Unless secretly WWE has plans for Sasha to return to Survivor Series and then Naomi to come back shortly afterwards. So they do like a tag team title feud with Sasha and Naomi against Damage Control. I don't want to see it personally, you know, because me personally, I don't want to see Sasha come back in a tag team. You've done that with Bayley. You've done that with Naomi. No complaints. I have nothing against Naomi. But, of course, if you're bringing Sasha back, I think you just really need to book her as a single star. You know, give her the single run that she deserves. Build her up for one of those women's titles and finally give her the long title reign that she deserves. All right. That's what I would do. You know, if you're bringing Sasha back just to be in a mediocre tag team division, right? Because if we're being honest with ourselves, sure, yes, Vince has made the women's tag team division a little bit better, but it's still not great. If you're bringing Sasha and Naomi back for that, people are going to be like, really? You know, because I'm telling you, if Sasha is coming back like we believe she is, like no matter that's at Survivor Series or the Rumble, I'm willing to bet she's had extensive talks with Triple H about the direction of her character, what she wants to do, etc., etc. You know, unless Sasha really does want to come back to a tag team. I don't think she does. I feel like Sasha's at a stage of her career where she knows that Hollywood, she has so many opportunities out there. If she's coming back to WWE, she wants to be treated like a big star. She wants to do big matches, and she just wants to, you know, be treated properly. She was only sometimes treated like that when she was with Vince, right? And mainly the only times where she was pushed when Vince was there was because, you know, Becky was injured or Charlotte was injured or something like that. Sasha deserves to be booked as the best female wrestler in the world because she is the best female wrestler in the world. All right? You know, as talented as the women's division is in AEW and WWE, when Sasha's there is nobody better. And I know Triple H, you know, understands that. I read a report a couple weeks ago that, you know, Triple H wants to push Cora Jade, one of my favorites in NXT's women's division, as the next Sasha Banks. So, you know, Triple H knows how much of a star Sasha is. And he also knows, you know, that, you know, Sasha's not going to be there forever. She's 30 right now, you know, but of course she has other opportunities that are out there for her. She's not going to come back, you know, if she feels like she's, you know, not going to be treated as a big star. And I feel like Triple H knows that, you know. So that's my thoughts on the matter. I hope Sasha comes back, you know. If I had to make a prediction, I don't think it happens. If like I want to be wrong, but my prediction will probably be that it would be more likely that Becky comes back this Sunday or this Saturday than Sasha. But like I said, I could be wrong, and I would have no problem being wrong. You know, whatever Sasha has planned for her wrestling career, you know, if Triple H is involved, like I believe he is, they're keeping it hush-hush. Sasha is one of the most private people we've ever met in the wrestling industry. She doesn't reveal anything to the media unless she wants to. So I feel like whatever, you know, they do have planned for her potential return, you know, only a couple people know about it. But I do hope I'm wrong, and I really do hope Sasha does return at Survivor Series this Saturday. It will be an epic moment if she does. But if she doesn't, it is what it is, and we'll just have to probably look more towards the Rumble at that point. We'll have to wait another 2 months to finally get Sasha's return. Hopefully, right? Because I would be shocked. If Sasha's not back by the Rumble, right? If Sasha doesn't return at Survivor Series at the Rumble, then I would actually be really nervous on if she actually is going to come back to WWE. But we haven't heard reports of her being released, so we'll just have to wait and see. Right. And I remember Sasha posted on her Instagram like 2 weeks ago saying that, talking to her fans and saying that something was coming that she was really excited about. And it was, I think we all knew it had something to do with wrestling. So Sasha's been teasing, a big wrestling announcement. Right. Let's hope it's Survivor Series. But like I said, we'll just have to wait and see. And I do hope Sasha does return this Sunday or this Saturday at Survivor Series, man. I'm still not used to WWE doing all their pay-per-views on Saturdays now, but it is what it is. All right, lastly, I know we took 50 minutes to get to this, but this will probably be pretty quick. But yes, let's talk about Survivor Series predictions, right? There's only 5 matches on this show, and of course, this is the first time we're getting War Games matches on the main roster, right? Which, if you of course notice, you guys noticed from the video packages, right? WWE had to be creative with the way they made those video packages because they've never done War Game matches on the main roster, so most of the main roster stars have not been on in a War Games match. Kevin Owens is the only one from the men's side that's been in one. On the women, yes, you've had Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair, and Dakota Kai and Io Sky. They've been in War Games matches, so it's a little bit easier from the women's side because those women were in NXT when they were doing War Game matches. But from the men's side, only one person in that match has been in a War Games match. So one thing I will expect is I think you're going to see a lot of high risk spots. I think you're going to see a lot of crazy spots. I expect these War Games matches to be awesome. But I think part of that is just going to be for future, God willing, for future War Games matches for years to come. They're going to want to have footage to use for video packages, marketing materials, things of that nature. Excuse me. So that's just something that I would expect in this match. Expect some big spots so that they can just use them for marketing stuff in the future for future War Games matches. But in terms of the card itself, like I said, it has that NXT takeover feel because there's only 5 announced matches. Maybe they announce a 6th match. I could see maybe Bray Wyatt and LA Knight being put on this card just because, Bray Wyatt has not had a match since he's come back. He's only just been involved in backstage and promo segments. But I would not be surprised if they do something with Bray Wyatt and LA Knight on this show just to put on another match or maybe even a promo segment just, give us a break since, there's only 5 matches on the show. But the 5 matches we have AJ Styles and Finn Balor one-on-one. We have Ronda Rousey versus Shotzi Blackheart. We have triple threat for the U.S. Championship with Bobby Lashley, Seth Rollins, and Austin Theory. And then we have the 2 War Games matches, the women's one and the men's one. So quickly, I don't think this will take too long, but let's go through these matches. I'll give you guys my predictions. One, on the women's side, Ronda Rousey versus Shotzi Blackheart. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I have not been paying attention to this at all. And you guys know I am a big advocate for women's wrestling. Women's wrestling is my favorite thing, right? But I have not paid attention to anything Ronda Rousey has really done. This has been a horrific run for Ronda Rousey. Really, I'm being serious. And she's had 2 SmackDown Women's Championship reigns in the last year, right? But Ronda does not feel anywhere near as good as she was a couple years ago, right? And she has done nothing to add value to the SmackDown Women's Championship. And I'm still pissed off that they took the title off of Liv Morgan. You know, you guys know I love Liv Morgan. I'm a big fan. And I feel like, you know, she didn't get the treatment she deserved as SmackDown Women's Champion. You know, like, I feel like they've done more with Liv Morgan in the weeks since she's lost that title, since than when she was champion, right? I feel like they just gave Liv Morgan the title just to be, all right, here, we're going to, you know, just get Ronda away from the title scene for a little bit. Because what? Liv held that title for 2-3 months, and then they gave it right back to Ronda at Extreme Rules. You know, and I like Ronda, but she's done nothing. She's done nothing. Who has she really elevated, right? You know, I know Charlotte and Sasha and, you know, Bayley and Becky are on opposite shows, right? But Ronda has not elevated anybody. She's done nothing with that title. What special moment, what great match has Ronda had since winning that title? Nothing. You know, my favorite moment of Ronda with the title was when she lost to Liv Morgan at Money in the Bank. I was there earlier this year at Backlash. I was there for the Ronda Charlotte I Quit match. I was there live, and I was on camera. I was in the floor seats behind the ring on camera, and it was a good match. And I was like, okay, let's see if Ronda can elevate this women's division, and she hasn't done that at all. It's actually wicked disappointing because I'm a Ronda Rousey fan, but she's done absolutely nothing with that title, and it's disappointing. I like how Shotzi Blackheart, you know, because Vince kind of ruined her. Vince turned her heel, took away her tank, right? And we all know Shotzi's way better as a babyface, you know, and which is rare because I would say most people are better as heels than babyface. But Shotzi thrives more as a babyface. She should have never had the tank, you know, taken away from her. But you know, I'm happy that Shotzi's getting this opportunity, but it's not believable. Shotzi's not gonna win, you know. And I don't even expect this to really be a long match. And I hate to say that because I like Shotzi and I like Ronda, but they've done nothing to make me care about this match. I until I watched Monday Night Raw last night or a couple nights ago, I forgot that this match was even on the card. So I'm sorry, but you know, I just don't really care for this match. I'm just gonna keep it 100. You know, obviously I'm going with Ronda Rousey to win. I expect the match probably to be 10 minutes or less, right? But you know, that's really it. I don't expect anything major. You know what? Maybe you get the chance that, I don't know, Sasha or Charlotte or somebody returns, and that sets up Ronda's next opponent. But you know, I don't know. I honestly don't know. Maybe Sasha returns in the Women's War Game match, and maybe a Becky, you know, come out to challenge Ronda. We've known for years now that WWE wants to do Becky versus Ronda one-on-one. A couple years ago, of course, they did the winner-take-all triple threat match, but WWE has always had it in their cards to do Ronda versus Becky one-on-one. I know we're going into the Royal Rumble, right? Becky's going to be one of the favorites to win the Rumble match, right? Because people are going to want to see Becky versus Ronda at the Rumble or at Mania. You know, I do want to see the one-on-one match, but I don't think it needs a title. It's almost similar to Roman and The Rock. I don't think, you know, Becky versus Ronda needs to have a title on it to feel special. I don't. You can easily do that match non-title. But we'll see the direction that they go to. It's really also going to depend on, you know, what they do. If Sasha comes back, if Charlotte comes back, right? And, you know, some other things need to fall into place. But I don't see Ronda losing that title. And I think it's more than likely that she goes on to hold that title till WrestleMania and goes up against Becky Lynch. I hope I'm wrong because I don't want to see that match for the title because you don't need to do it for the title. But, you know, we'll just have to wait and see. Anyway, moving on. Yeah, I have Ronda beating Shotzi. Next up, Finn Balor and AJ Styles. This could go both ways, really. We know that the OC and the Judgment Day, they've been feuding now for months, right? The OC has Mia Yim on their side to tackle, the threat of Rhea Ripley. We know that both Mia Yim and Rhea Ripley will be in the War Games match for the women, so they'll probably continue that story during that match. I think this will mainly be one-on-one for the most part, but of course, probably the OC and the Judgment Day will both get involved at some point. I think it's more likely that Finn Balor wins this match. The Judgment Day have been booked very, very well since Triple H has taken over. The only thing that the Judgment Day doesn't have is titles. That's it. But as a faction, they have been booked perfectly in my eyes. And we've heard the reports. Triple H has big plans for Finn Balor going forward. And of course, I love Finn. I love AJ Styles. These are two of my favorite guys on the main roster. I think they're going to absolutely kill it. I think we all remember their match from TLC. What was it 4 years ago, I think? So these two have great chemistry together. I think these two could potentially steal the show and give us the best match of the night if given the time. But I do expect Finn Balor to win the match. Sure, AJ Styles could win, but I think it's more than likely that Finn Balor will walk out on top for Survivor Series. So I have Finn Balor defeating AJ Styles. Next up, we have the triple threat match for the U.S. Championship. Seth Rollins, Bobby Lashley, and Austin Theory. I could spend a whole 30 minutes just talking about the different dynamics of this match, right? Because they've really done a lot. A lot has happened with these three men. Bobby Lashley losing the U.S. Championship to Seth Rollins. Then he lost to Brock Lesnar at Crown Jewel, and then people thought Lashley turned heel afterwards, right? And then some of us thought that they did like a double turn with Seth and Bobby. We thought that Seth was turning babyface and Lashley was turning heel, but it's been really, really confusing. I think what's likely is, the reason why they had Bobby lose the Brock at a Crown Jewel is I think they want to do a third match with these two at WrestleMania, which I have no problem with. And I think that's when Lashley will get his win over Brock. But I could be wrong. But I would say that it's confusing because I don't know. I would say Lashley's still a babyface the way he's been acting. He's just been more of an aggressive babyface. I think because he said in an interview, I'm still a good guy, but I'll hurt anybody who gets in my way. So I think he's just that no prisoners attitude that, if you piss him off, if you look at him the wrong way, you're getting your ass beat, which is fine. I love a badass babyface. So I think Lashley's still a babyface. But a couple weeks ago, they had Rollins acting like a babyface. But the promo he gave on Raw, he talked about how he took out Cody Rhodes and injured him. So now I'm confused. Is Seth a babyface? Is he a heel? Is he a tweeter? Like, what's going on there? So that's confusing. I'll say this. Lashley is a babyface right now. Rollins, I don't know if he's a babyface or a heel. And Austin Theory is clearly the main heel here, right? And of course, Austin Theory, he cashed in his Money in the Bank briefcase a couple weeks ago on Seth Rollins, and he failed, which was absolutely hilarious. I knew that Austin Theory was never going to cash in that briefcase successfully. He was never going to get it on Roman, And yes, even though I laughed my ass off and had really no problem with him failing his cash in on Seth, it was stupid. It was stupid from a storyline / logical perspective to have him cash in the U.S. Championship. Even though I laughed my ass off and I enjoyed it, it was honestly not the best decision to have a Theory cash in on the U.S. Championship. I know they tried to have him explain why he did that the last couple Mondays, right? Saying that, Theory saying there was no way he was going to be able to cash in on Roman because there's always the bloodline there to back him up. And he had already tried 2 times before at 2 other pay-per-views to cash in to no avail. So he said like Roman's untouchable. So as long as Roman is has the bloodline, there's no future where I can cash in on him. So I appreciated them trying to give me an explanation, but it was still stupid to have him cash in on the U.S. champion. I would have had Theory cash in on the NXT championship, to be honest. Cash in on Braun Breaker and then give him a run down there. But they didn't do that, and it is what it is. But the last couple weeks, Theory has been very, very strong on the microphone. He's given good promos, right? He's been very dominant in the ring. He's had good matches, and the thing is with Austin Theory is that he is young. He is a future star of this company. I don't know if I'll say a future world champion. He has that potential, but I don't know if he'll ever actually become a world champion. But I do love how they've made him into a serious character, right? He has been a little bit of a joke, even though, yes, he's been U.S. champion before earlier this year. He's been, a Money in the Bank winner, right? But, of course, a lot of that was under Vince. And ever since Vince left, they've kind of made Theory, a little bit of a laughingstock to a lot of people, right? But I do love how, even though he lost Money in the Bank and it was stupid how they did it, right? They have, made Theory more of a serious, more of a badass character, right? I'm not the biggest fan of him, but of course, I do recognize a great character and a great wrestler when I see it. And Theory right now, he's becoming better and better by the week, right? And I love this new serious attitude of him he has, saying that, no longer am I going to be disrespected, or, I'm not the future, I'm the now. I do love that. And when you look at this match, it could go 3 different ways. You can make compelling cases for all 3 of these men, right? Lashley wants to regain the title, and of course, I would have no problem with any of these 3 men winning this title. Lashley feels like Seth, tricked him into taking that title, which is kind of true, right? Seth is Seth Rollins, right? I feel we all would say Seth deserves a long title run with the amount of character work and in-ring work he's put in the last couple of years. And remember, Seth was originally supposed to win the WWE Championship way back earlier at day 1 earlier this year. That was the plan until Brock Lesnar came back and, ruined everything. But you can go 3 ways with all 3 of these men. If I had to take a pick, right, of course, I would love to see Lashley win, but my prediction is Austin Theory. I think something will happen where Bobby and Seth are going at it, one downs, but then Theory will come in at the last moment and steal the win. I think, they're going to capitalize on this serious Austin Theory character. I think he's going to win this Sunday and become United States champion. Like I said, I'm not going to complain if Lashley wins or Rollins wins, right? But if I had to make a prediction right now, right, and I think this is the only title match on the show outside, it's the only men's title up for grabs on the show. I think Theory walks out United States champion. That's my prediction. Right. Getting into the 2 War Games matches quickly. For the women's War Game match, you have Bianca, Alexa, Asuka, Mia Yim, and whoever's the 5th woman against Damage Control, Rhea Ripley, and NXT Nikki Cross, because, badass crazy Nikki Cross is finally back, which I'm happy for. You could go, like I said, you could go either way with this match. If I'm being honest, right? I think if Sasha comes back, I think you have the woman win. You have the baby faces win. If Sasha doesn't come back, I would have the heels win, right? Rhea Ripley has been booked perfectly ever since, they had her join Judgment Day, right? I feel like this is the best Rhea Ripley we've gotten in a long time. And, honestly, I think Rhea Ripley should probably be the one to take the Raw Women's title from Bianca Belair. But, still, I'm surprised they haven't even done that match yet. But, Rhea Ripley has looked strong. And I think Damage Control needs it. Damage Control has had really 50-50 booking. They've received the Vince McMahon treatment, which I'm surprised with. They've won the tag titles and lost them. You had Bayley lose 2 pay-per-view matches to Bianca. I picked Bayley to win both those matches and she lost, right? I know you've tried to make Damage Control into a big deal, but the inconsistent booking with them has hurt them, right? And as much as I love Triple H, it is not a crime to admit that. Triple H is not perfect. He hasn't been perfect. He's been pretty good, but he's made mistakes so far in his run. And Damage Control is one of them. They've had some inconsistent booking. And unless Sasha Banks comes back, of course, if Sasha comes back, you should have the babyfaces win. Of course, you should have that scene of Sasha winning her first match back in her hometown. But if not, I would definitely have the woman win. I don't really have any predictions on what the pinfall is going to be or anything like that. I'm not going to get into that, really. We'll just have to wait and see. But unless Sasha doesn't come back, or unless Sasha does come back, I would have the heels win this War Game match. Next up, or lastly, and like I said, we'll have to see what happens with Bianca, because I don't know. I love Bianca Belair, but her title run has been it's been hit or miss her times for me. She's held that title now for 7 months, but it's really been hit or miss in my personal opinion. But moving on lastly to what will most likely be the main event, right? Like I said earlier, if Sasha Banks comes back as Survivor Series, I would have the woman main event Survivor Series. But if not, the most likely main event, of course, will be Roman Reigns and the Bloodline going up against the babyface team, Drew McIntyre, Kevin Owens, and the Brawling Brutes. And this was a match that was put together in the last couple weeks, but, I don't really have a problem with it. I do like the babyfaces' motivation of going after the Bloodline. All these babyfaces have beef with the Bloodline. Kevin Owens, of course, he's been trying to get back to Roman Reigns for the last year and a half since their feud in the Thunderdome in 2021. Also, you have the Sami Zayn storyline, right? But KO said, even though that's my brother and I love him, I will take him down if I need to get the Roman Reigns. I do, like I said earlier, I do think eventually when Sami Zayn turns babyface, Zayn and KO should 100% be a babyface tag team, and you gotta have them go after the Usos. I think KO and Sami would be the perfect people to take those titles off of the Usos at WrestleMania. Of course, Drew McIntyre, he has beef with Roman Reigns. Of course, the Bloodline and Solo kept Drew from winning the Undisputed Universal Championship back at the show in England. I forget what that show, the Clash of the Castle, right? So, Drew does have, justified beef with the Bloodline, of course, and the Brawling Brutes. They've been going at it with the Usos for the tag titles and all that for a couple months now. So it all makes sense, right? It all makes sense for a storyline perspective. I want to say that the babyfaces should win this match, right? Especially since I predicted earlier that I think Damage Control and the heels will win the women's match. Makes sense to have, of course, one babyface team win their War Games match and have a heel team win the other War Games match. That's usually the way it should work, right? But thing is, I was at Backlash, and you remember we got that amazing 6-man tag with Roman and the Usos versus Randy Orton, Matt Riddle, and Drew McIntyre. And man, I miss Randy Orton these days. I want him back badly. One of my favorites. One thing that's interesting is I thought in that match they were going to have the babyfaces win, right? Because I feel like at that point we all knew that the Usos were most likely going to be the ones to take the Raw Tag Team titles from RK Bro. But at least, RK Bro could, they would have a win over the Usos, right? And you could have easily done that and not have Roman pin, right? Because Roman hasn't been pinned in 3 years now? Here's the thing. Roman won that match, and he pinned Riddle in the process. So now when I look back at that match, right, Roman's not going to get pinned. It's like, it doesn't even matter if it's a tag team match. Even in a match where Roman can lose and not be pinned, they're not going to do that. It's always Roman standing tall at the end of all these shows. That's the way it always is. So, as much as I want to say the babyfaces are going to win this match, and it would make sense, right? You could do different things, right? You could have, like, Sami Zayn get pinned, and that could, cause tension in the bloodline and all that, Any match that Roman Reigns is in, I think that Reigns is winning. It's that simple. I want to say my heart wants me to go. My heart wants to go with the baby faces, but from a logical perspective, I can't bet against Roman Reigns. Doesn't matter what match he is. It could be Roman versus 60 men. Until he loses that title, he's not losing any match he's in. So from that perspective, I'm going to go with the heels. I think Roman Reigns will probably spear, I don't know, one of the Brawling Brutes for the victory. Who knows? I don't know, something like that. I expect it to be a great match. I expected to set up some other storylines, right? Like KO versus KO and Sami Zayn against Usos and stuff like that. But in the end, I think the bloodline will stand tall. And, Roman, of course, the show will end with Roman holding those 2 titles over his hand. And, all the pyro going off to end the show. And that's how I think War Games will end. So there you have it. Those are my predictions for War Games. I have the bloodline. The bloodline beating Drew, the Brawling Brutes, and Kevin Owens. I have Damage Control, Rhea Ripley, and Nikki Cross beating Bianca, Asuka, Alexa, Mia Yim, and whoever the 5th person is, unless it is Sasha Banks that returns. If it is Sasha Banks, I have the babyfaces winning the Women's War Game match. I have Ronda Rousey defending and retaining the SmackDown Women's Championship against Shotzi. I have Austin Theory winning the U.S. Championship in that triple threat with Rollins and Lashley. And I have Finn Balor defeating AJ Styles. So based on my predictions, I think the heels are going to dominate this show. I feel like we'll see a lot of victories from the heels, but I don't know. I don't know what the show, what will actually happen, but those are just my predictions. Those are my thoughts. All right, but we'll see what happens. I do expect it to be a great show. I do expect there will be a lot of things coming out of it that we'll be able to talk about that will lead us going into the end of the year and slowly to Royal Rumble and WrestleMania season. But, we'll just have to see what happens, and I do expect it to be a fun night. So, other than that, that's about all I got for you guys today. Thank you guys so very much for joining me here on the Legit Shoot podcast. It feels good to be back. If you guys enjoyed this podcast, leave a like on this video. Subscribe if you guys are new by clicking the big red button next to my name, Fitzmonk TV. Also, follow me down on social media. The links are in the description down below. Like I said, I will be at War Games in Boston at the TD Garden this Saturday. So if you guys do not see a review from me Saturday night, it's because I'm going to be driving home and, I'll probably be absolutely exhausted. So I'm not going to probably want to turn on the camera after the show. So most likely, I would probably expect a War Games review on Sunday afternoon, Sunday night, most likely. But other than that, that's about all I got for you guys today. I will see you guys later. Thank you guys for the love and support. I will see you guys. Peace.